Welcome to Women of the Wild,
where education and opportunities are key,
and friendships are made to last a lifetime.
Did you get it?
You think we got him? You think we got him? We got him.
All right, Skylar, what do we got here?
We've got a nice looking rip-off.
Oh, there she is. Woo! You dropped our great ghost.
Give me a hug.
Welcome back to Season 2 Women of the Wild podcast. We would like to first start off by thanking our title sponsors for the 2024 year. Atlantic Coral Enterprise, one of the largest import dealers in the world with excellent quality for hides, skulls, shells, and amazing gifts for friends and family or even your household. You can find them at AtlanticCoralEnterprise.com. RM Custom Called, multiple world championships from Main Street to Live Duck. American made, veteran owned. When you want to win on the stage or in the blind, we have you covered. Small shop, big sound. You can find them at rmcustomcall.com or on Instagram. We also have Rhino Land Safaris, providing exceptional quality with unmatched hospitality and cuisine, offering African safaris, a destination hunt for the avid rifle or bow hunter with some of the best trophy management South Africa has to offer. You can find them at rhinoland.co.za or on Facebook, Instagram.
Hey everyone, Andy Lehman here from ACC Crappie Sticks. Just want to let you know about our crappie baits and jig heads. We have a wide selection of the hottest colors and big eye crappie jig heads in the most popular colors and sizes. Check them all out at accrappiesticks.com. Thank you.
And now for today's episode, we hope you enjoy. Hi, welcome to Season 2 Women of the Wild podcast. I'm your host, Felicia Marie. I am here today with Lexi Vaughn with the Fish Studio in Michigan. Hi, Lexi. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I am super excited to chat with you and share what you're doing, because I think that you're this person that is portraying what a woman has the capability of doing in the outdoors, and we don't really see it a lot very often. So I'm really excited to dive into conversation. But first, before we get into that, I would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you kind of, because you have this passion for the outdoors as well, along with the taxidermy. So I'd love to hear how you got into the outdoors just in general and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so as you said, my name's Lexi Vaughn. I'm 24. I'm from Marine City, Michigan. I grew up with family and friends that were very involved with the outdoors. We did a lot of camping, traveling, spent a lot of time out on the water, in the woods, running trap lines with my dad, shooting sporting clays on the weekend, things like that. Growing up was really interesting for me because as much as any little girl likes to play with dolls and do things like that, I remember doing a fair share of, like my dad shot a deer, I would be out in the garage hanging out with him, or skinning muskrats and raccoons when we got done from checking trap lines and things like that, So I had a really great and diversified upbringing.
I love that. So you are into all of it though, because I follow your page and you're out there sturgeon fishing, you're duck hunting, you're all over, you're bow fishing, which is one of my big loves and passions. So super awesome that you're like that diverse, that jack of all trades, right?
Yeah, there's really nothing that I don't like. As long as it's outside and it's active and it has anything to do with the outdoors, like I'm usually game for it. I really love fishing. I love hunting. I just love being outdoors in general.
It's a cure for the soul, right? Like you are in this position where you get to go do something, you have to build this skill set, so you're challenging yourself, but you're getting to enjoy the outdoors. Like there's nothing better than that when you pick up a hobby in the outdoors, because there's all this challenge to yourself, there's all this skill that you have to build, and it's just this mental stimulation of keeping yourself going and growing. And then just the peace that you feel when you're in the outdoors, especially if you're doing a hunt by yourself, but there's the camaraderie of hunting with other people. So it can be such a diverse world out there.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's so many times even, and you could ask anybody that's into the outdoors. You could ask them, like no matter what you have going on in your life, whatever troubles you're going through, whatever you're dealing with, like as soon as you step into the woods, or soon as you step out into the field or onto the water, like your whole mindset just really changes. You're focused, you're doing what you love, you're thanking God for his creation and just having the ability to do this. And, you end up leaving afterwards with a whole new mindset, like no matter what you were dealing with before, almost like there's nothing that you can't handle. Like being out in the woods or being outdoors in general is just really refreshing for me. And it kind of takes a lot of load off my shoulder in a way. And I think that's good for anybody. And I think anybody that's into the outdoors can, attest for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter if it's hunting, if it's fishing, if it's photography, it's a hard reset, and it's a fantastic reset and a healthy reset too. It's not like you're out doing something you shouldn't be doing, or there's a lot of like regulations to follow, and keeping up on all of that can be a challenge. So it's just, to me, that's always been the best part of the outdoors, is you are constantly learning and growing. And to me, you're always advancing. No matter how well versed you are in something, you're still learning. Like you can be a master bass angler and you're still going to learn something every single time you go out, whether it's about the elements, whether it's about your gear, whether it's about the fish or the habitat. Like there's always something to learn. Avid turkey hunters, like every time you go out, you're learning something new, whether it's about the game you're pursuing or something else. So you're right. It is a place for a reconnection with your soul, and absolutely fantastic. So is that, for our listeners, you are actually the owner to the fish studio here in Michigan, which is specializing in fish taxidermy?
Yep. I started that a couple years ago. But yeah, that's basically my whole thing now. It's the only job that I have. It's the absolute love of my life. I love what I do. It's so fun.
So how did that come about? Just through the passion for the outdoors? Like, can you tell me where that all came from, that inspiration to get that going?
Yeah, so I've been doing taxidermy now for about 7 years. I've always been drawn to art itself, whether that be drawing, painting, sculpting, anything art related. I really, really loved it. And it was around the time of my senior year of high school when my dad actually started getting into woodworking, and he carves decoys for pike spearing. So that's his hobby. And it was around that time I just happened to come across some paint catalogs, taxidermy catalogs that he had laying around. And I started to look through them, and honestly, I was just amazed by it all. Like taking it in, flipping through the pages. I had so many questions. I had such an interest in it from the moment I saw it. You know what I mean? Like, and so I had an idea of what taxidermy was, just because, my dad had mounts in the house, a fair share of his shoulder mounts and birds and things like that. But like I said, I just had so many questions. I remember begging my dad actually to take me. His buddy had owned a shop locally, and I remember begging him to take me just because I just wanted to pick his brain. I just wanted to learn so much more about it. So anyways, he eventually took me over there to meet him. And like, I remember walking in and my eyes were probably the widest they had ever been. And it's funny to look back at it now and think about it, because his buddy was definitely more interested in talking and catching up with my dad than he was to answer, little me in high school, pestering him about all these questions. But honestly, I was just really determined to just get to know it more, learn the art, learn the craft. But so the way that it got started was I had asked him for a job, and I don't know, like, I don't know if he took me seriously or if it was kind of comical, because at the time, it was like, even still nowadays, you don't hear very many women taxidermists. Like, there's a lot more that now than there was 7 years ago. So at the time, it was like, I just don't know if he took me seriously, and it's kind of funny to think about. But after begging every day, just showing up after school, whether he wanted me or not, he eventually caved and offered me a part-time job. But it didn't start out easy, but I loved every bit of it. Honestly, they'd throw any of the grossest jobs that you could think of my way, like maggots on deer skulls, cleaning up blood off the floor after days of skinning, dumpster duty, things like that. And I really appreciate that, because had I not dealt with that, like, I don't know if I really would have been, not that I wouldn't have been into it, but you got to go through the hard stuff to appreciate, learning it and getting the easy stuff later on. So after that, I did some research into taxidermy schools, taxidermy courses and stuff around the country. And I had found a school out in Iowa that looked really, really good. I mean, I still keep in touch with my old teacher, whatever. He's definitely one of the mentors that, helped me learn and, made me into the taxidermist I am today. So with the help of, my parents at the time and saving my money from my part-time jobs that I had, whatever, I was able to go out there and do that school. While I was out there, I, learned the different techniques to mounting, preservation, things like that. I did deer, birds, small game, big game, tanned my own hides. But I really, really gravitated to the fish for whatever reason. I think a lot of it was just because fish take a lot of, painting to do, whether it's a skin mount or as a replica or whatever it is. I really enjoyed the painting aspect of it. So I really did gravitate to the fish. Shortly after that, I came back to Michigan, and I expressed to my boss at the time that, I wanted to start doing fish seriously. I wanted more responsibility. I wanted to take on more work. Like, I was honestly ready to dive in head first. He was a little hesitant at first, just because probably me being 18-year-old overzealous, he was a little hesitant at first, but eventually he handed the fish department over to me. And honestly, from that moment on, I lived and breathed fish taxidermy. Like, I'd wake up in the morning and that was all I thought about, like, from looking at reference pictures to, I going out catching fish just to take pictures of them and mount them, practicing with my airbrush, learning new ways of painting. As much information as I was learning and different things that I was getting, it was never enough. Like, I always wanted to learn more. I always wanted to do more. So then fast forward a few years later, here I am today. I opened up the fish studio a little over 2 years ago. And yeah, that's where I'm at today.
And your fish, like, can I just say, they look like they should still be breathing. Like, the artistic ability that you have built over this period of time, like, you actually have this incredible eye for it, because I've seen pictures of your mounts, and then you look at, like, the reference photos and you're like, oh my gosh, you can't, in a photo with a good, like, background to them, you're not going to know the difference on some of these. You're, like, spectacular at what you do. And I don't know what, like, if you're told that often, but your fish are pretty amazing. I think that what you have done is honestly what you were built to do. That's what you were made to do.
Oh, that means so much to me that you say that, honestly, because, I think everybody that does something, like some type of artwork, some type of craft, whatever it is that you set your mind to do, you always, like, think in the back of your head, like, I can be better, and every day I'm constantly striving and pushing myself to be better. I don't ever think you can master art necessarily. And especially because whether you specialize in deer or birds or small game or fish or whatever it is, whether you do one of it or all of it, you're just like, you can't replicate what God created. And that is the hardest thing to come to terms with. No matter how well a fish is painted or how well a deer is mounted, you know, you're always trying your best. You're always striving for perfection. And for me, I mean, I really appreciate you saying that, because I do, you know, I'll sit there in the shop and I'll just stare at the fish and I'm like, man, how can I make this better tomorrow? You know, but honestly, like, I agree with you on that. Like, I am definitely doing what I'm made to do, for sure.
Yeah.
Cause I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
No, you definitely has found what your purpose was, and I have to commend you for that, especially at the age you're at and knowing in high school that this is where you wanted to be, and now to be at the age that you are, to have your own studio, to be as established as you are. Like, for our listeners out there, and especially our female listeners that are interested in following your passions and following your goals, Lexi, you are the epitome of that. Like, you found your passion, you have that determination. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? Like, women have to be determined. You can't just say, I want to do this and not put the work in. You have put that work in, and you did the dumpster duty, and you cleaned the maggots off the skulls. And like, like you said, you have to do those things to appreciate the good. And whether that's taxidermy or it's something else in the hunting profession, or even if it's just hunting, right? Like, you're always learning, you're always growing. And I think that's the biggest mindset people need to understand. It's okay to never be a quote unquote master, right? Like, you are still a master in what you do based on the skill set that you provide. But in your head, if you let your head get too big and you're like, I'm the best there is, there's no way I could make this better, that's when I feel that you stop growing. And I think that you have that
Yes.
mentality of, this could be better tomorrow. Now, do you ever have a project where you're like, I have this to where I want it, but maybe I feel like I should change something, but you start to get, do you ever get like frustrated to the point where you're like, I can't do anything else because I'm just going to end up screwing it up? Do you ever
Every
get that way? Yeah.
Every day, you know, I mean, there's fish that I do and I'm in love with them. You know what I mean? And then I look at them a couple days later and I'm like, well, maybe I should add more color here. Maybe I should tweak this a bit, whatever. But I've definitely had to learn to know when enough is enough, you know, like whether I've done it to the best of my ability or it's 100% exact replicated, like the reference picture, like you definitely have to know your limits, you know. And like I said before, you know, taxidermists, they're trying to do the impossible. Do you know what I mean? Because for us to try and recreate something that was already perfect is really challenging. So that was definitely something that humbled me, something that I for sure had to learn, especially early on in my career when I just started out learning this. You know, I mean, of course, when you just start out doing anything, you're not going to be the best at it. And there's definitely mounts that I have, you know, hanging up at my parents' house that I like, my first fish mount I ever did. And, you know, a lot of things like that I look back now, you know, 7 years later, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? You know, and at the time I thought, like, this is the best thing ever. It looks amazing. You know, I'll never get better than this. And it's funny. It's so funny to look back on it now and just to see how much I've grown over the years. And then knowing friends of mine who are also taxidermists, to see them growing as well. And it's just really cool, you know, to watch your own progression and to see how far you can take it. And for me, I'm just really excited to see where I'll be in another 5 years, you know,
Absolutely.
because I'm very involved with the Michigan Taxidermist Association. Shout out to them. Every year they do an annual competition and convention. And now that's a really, really cool organization and association that I'm so blessed to be a part of. You know, I'm thankful for it every year. It's so fun being involved with such an awesome group of people, like-minded people, you know, artists and taxidermists that, you know, we're all just hanging out. We're just competing. We're all just trying to learn more and, you know, further our craft and our ability. And I mean, you know, I don't know where I would be if I hadn't discovered them, because, you know, just as, you know, I'm learning from them, they're learning from me, they're learning from other people. We're all kind of just learning together, just so that we're all better as a taxidermist. You know what I mean? And so that's a really, really cool association that I am super happy to be a part of.
So what are some of the things that they do aside from that competition? Do you stay in contact with people throughout the year, or have pages that you like, forums to keep each other educated and learn from each other?
Oh yeah, I mean, some of my best friends now today, I met at this, in this association a few years ago, because I started competing about 4 years ago, and I became a board member 2 years ago. And throughout the year, there's membership meetings and stuff like that. And then there's things where we have, seminar days where we show up at one location, the membership or whoever wants to be involved during that day. And, someone will be up there how to mount a deer, or tips and tricks for grooming hides, and how to further, fish taxidermy, or how to set wings for bird taxidermy. And it's like they do these little seminars throughout the year that caters to all avenues of taxidermy, not just one thing over the other. And so that's really cool. And yeah, definitely keep in touch with everybody throughout the year. You'll get the messages or you'll get the phone calls. Hey, how's it going? Been working on anything cool lately? Here's a couple pictures of what I've been doing. And it's a really, really cool group to be a part of, for sure, especially for such a niche hobby and career like taxidermy is. And there's, in every state, they have their own state association. Ohio has theirs, Illinois, Florida, Texas. And then there's an association on a national level as well, and then a world's level. So, there's a national taxidermy association where everybody in the country competes together and has their convention. And then the world has their own convention and competition as well. So, I mean, it's really just like, it's kind of like a brotherhood in a way, or a sisterhood, brother and sisterhood. But yeah, I've met some of my bestest friends now today through that.
That's incredible. So it becomes like a family, is the point of that, is you become best friends with these people. They become a part of your life and your everyday, getting around and learning from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Super awesome that they have that out there. I think a lot of people don't understand that, right? So they think like, oh, a taxidermist is just a taxidermist. But they're so, like, I have a really good friend who's a taxidermist and I admire his work so much. And it's like, I get to go in the back end and see like what he's dealing with, or these terrible like hides that are brought in that he has to salvage, or, whatever it may be. But I think that a lot of people they overlook how hard of work it is for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And the skill set behind it, like, it is, you guys are real artists. Like, there's no getting around it. It is an actual art of taxidermy that I just sometimes feel like you guys don't get the credit you deserve, because like, I'm a person that my house is like a baby Cabela's, right? Like, I mount everything. It's more about, yeah, I'm the person that like, it's more about commemorating the hunt. And I have them all, like, every single house in my room, aside from, I believe, my bathroom and my kitchen. My kitchen doesn't have one yet, but my bathroom and my kitchen are the only two rooms in my entire house. Even my kids' rooms, like, there's just mounts everywhere. And it's because I look at it as an art form. Like, I've had people that are like, oh, I don't want dead stuff around my house. And I'm like, it's not even that though. Like, to me, the fact that you have a good taxidermist that can make something look lifelike again, it's just this whole new level of appreciation for it. And fish are, I don't have any fish in my house yet, but they are actually one of my favorite to see, especially when you get all the habitat and everything involved. And it looks legit, like these fish are underwater. And I don't know, I value what you do. And I think that for our listeners who are tuning into this episode and are curious, they definitely need to come check out the Fish Studio, because your work it speaks for itself. We can sit here and rave about it all we want, but when they go see these photos, they're really going to see it. And the fact that being a young woman with the drive and the passion that you have, I think is so inspiring. And we're going to jump to a short commercial break, but we're going to come back and talk about that inspiration just a little bit deeper.
Share your love of the outdoors with your little ones through the exciting adventures in Dr. Josh Farr's children's books. As an avid sportsman, Dr. Josh Farr has taken his passion for the outdoors and uses his vivid storytelling to teach valuable lessons and appreciation of the world. Learn the alphabet through the ABCs of hunting. Find joy in exploring the outdoors with Let's Go Out and Play and more. You and your child will love learning about nature with Dr. Josh Farr. See all of his books now at drjoshfarr.com. That's drjoshfarr.com.
Weeby Knives, a brand of skinning, fleshing, and butchering knives perfect for the hunters, trappers, and fishermen, with a unique high-quality knife for animals of all shapes and sizes. You can find them and more information at weebyknives.com or on Facebook, Instagram. Stonehouse Digital Consulting. Elevate your small business with Stonehouse's expert marketing solutions. Ignite your online presence and thrive with a tailored strategy to drive your growth. You can find them and more information at stonehousedigitalconsulting.com or on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Livingston County Pheasants Forever, Chapter 465, with a mission to conserve pheasant, quail, and other wildlife through habitat improvements, public access, education, and conservation. You can contribute by joining the meetings on the first Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. at the Howell American Legion Hall on the corner of M59 and Grand River. For more information and to get involved, you can find them at pf465.com or on Facebook, Instagram. Dreamcatcher Charters, a Michigan-based guide service for walleye, sturgeon, and duck hunting, with a passion that drives their success, sharing the phenomenal Michigan waterways with everyone. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram. Feather Moon Outdoors, offering calls made from select materials. Every pot is fine-tuned in the house using the highest quality materials available. Also offering diaphragm, slate, glass, grunt calls, and more. For more information, you can find them at feathermoonoutdoors.com or on Facebook, Instagram. Stay tuned, more podcasts to come. Welcome back. We are here speaking with Lexi Vaughn from the Fish Studio, and we were just diving into inspiration, and that was one of the points that I wanted to bring up with you is, do you have, the power horse that you are in what you do you have anything inspirational that if there's girls listening that are interested, whether it's fish, whether it's, deer or birds or whatever it is in taxidermy, do you have any inspiration for those women that want to pick up this skill, pick up this trade, and where do they start?
Honestly, I mean, it's going to maybe sound silly when I say it, but if you're interested in something, you just need to go for it, especially, and I'm glad you brought this up, because being a woman in a male-dominated industry, and even being into the outdoors, hunting and fishing and everything that comes with it, having a hobby that's male-dominated, it's really hard to find your footing and to make your way through it. I've experienced my own challenges and stuff, with it, and I'm so grateful for the organization and the group that you have and what you're doing for women. I think it's brilliant. If for me, I found your page and I'm just, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at what they're doing. They're going all over the country. They're going all over the world. Like there's women out here that are just like me and they're doing it. And I just think that is the coolest thing. And so, definitely have to give credit to my family. Growing up, they definitely instilled in me if you want it, you need to go for it. Whatever you want in life, you need to work for it. And as long as you stick your mind to it, you'll get it. So to go back to what I was saying earlier, when I wanted a job working at the local taxidermy shop and, being brushed off, whatever, because I'm an 18-year-old girl wanting to be in a man's world. I really don't think I would have gotten to where I am today if I hadn't stuck it out. Good days, bad days, dealing with things that you don't really want to deal with, having hard days, everything that comes in it is you really just have to have the determination to go through it, to push through it, to see the light at the end of the tunnel and to see the bigger picture. Like at the end of the day, I want to be here. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. And I think that's very applicable to any of your endeavors, anything you want to do, whether it's taxidermy related or whether it's outdoor related. If you think to yourself, and my dad always calls it his 5-year plan. If you like something, stick with it for 5 years, and at the end of 5 years, decide if you like it or not. And, you know, some people might be like, well, 5 years, I don't really want to put up with it that long. But, you know, I stuck with taxidermy for 5 years. And at the end of the 5 years, I opened up my business. So there is some truth to it. And I would say to any woman out there or anybody at all who's listening to this, you know, if you want to learn something, don't let what anyone has to say, don't let anyone else's opinion about it affect you. You know, don't let people tell you that, well, you're a girl, you can't go out there and hunt, or you're a girl, like you're not gonna fit in, or anything like that, because that is just simply not true. Like, I mean, you're proving it, I'm proving it. There are hundreds of thousands of women around the world proving it every day that it's not a man's world, and we can do just as much as you can. And, you know, I'm really blessed to have such a strong support system around me, friends and family, and even the customers that trust me with their trophies, that, you know, continue to support me and push me to be better and push me to go farther with anything I want to do, whether it's outdoor related or taxidermy related.
Yeah, I think that you just hit something right on the nose with what your dad had told you of the 5 years. If you want to do something bad enough, and if you aren't willing to devote 5 years to it, if it's not something you want to do for the rest of your life, then it's probably not the avenue to go down. But if you see something and you're like, man, I want to do this, but I don't know if I want to give it 5 years. That is like a solid, sound piece of advice, because if you have to think about it, it's probably not the avenue for you, right? But in your situation, you're like, I don't care, I'm doing this. Like, this is what I want. And now you found this career path that you get to do what you love every single day. And people, you know, you always hear the people of, you know, find what you love doing, and it's no longer just a job that you're going to every day. Like, you have found your passion, you love what you do. And I really think that it's a commendable thing, because a lot of people will fall into society. We fall into line of this is kind of the steps we have to take to provide for our families or provide for ourselves. But at the end of the day, especially these women that are young, that, and not to say that you can't change paths if you have kids or anything like that, but these women who are young, who maybe are single or, you know, don't have kids yet, follow those dreams. Like, as a woman that's, you know, creeping up to 40 quickly, I have to say, there are plenty of things that I look at these young women and I'm like, man, the drive and the passion. And I had it at one point in time. Mine was in the automotive industry and I completely went a different route. But like, to stick to your guns and stay with what you love and turn that into a career and follow it, whether it's a trip or, you know, traveling to a school in Iowa to go do taxidermy, or I don't know, just take the trip, do it, and follow that passion, follow that dream. Don't conform to society. If you really want something, make it happen. And that's the biggest key to all of this, is you have to have the drive. You have to stick it out through those bad days, as you said. If you're not willing to push through those bad days, you're never going to appreciate the good ones. And that's just my perspective. Like, you have to feel the suffering to enjoy, I don't know how to even say that.
To enjoy the
yeah,
you know, like
the fruits of your labor, right?
Yeah, and you can't just have good days every day. You know, you need the bad days to appreciate the good days. And I think that's very applicable to any career or hobby that you choose, especially hunting related. You know, like, how many times have you sat in the woods? Me personally, I'll relate it to my life, is how many times have I sat in the woods and haven't seen a single animal move, you know? And how many times I think to myself, man, I can't wait to get out here tomorrow and do the exact same thing. And then finally, you know, for me, myself, like, I finally shot my first deer this year with a bow. And for me, it was like all of those late hunts, all of the early mornings, hours in the woods, learning, doing, you know, practicing with my bow in the backyard, doing all of those things, and all of the frustrating sits that I had. At the end of the day, it was all worth it, because, you know, everything lined up perfectly and I made it happen. You know what I mean? So I think that's very applicable to any of your, you know, any endeavor that you take on in life, career wise, hobby wise, really anything.
Yes. And it's just a matter of just getting out and doing it. If that's what you want to do it. Don't let anybody hold you back. Don't let anybody else drive your car, right? Like, steer your own car. I just did a big post in January about these women stifling other women and putting each other down over silly things. We're all in the outdoors community together, and when people learn that we glow brighter together, that we're going to succeed. And not to go off on a tangent about that, but it's in every aspect of everything. Just support one another, find a good support system. Those people that are in your life that aren't supporting you, I've always had this mentality of, if you're not contributing to my happiness, you're hindering it, right? That's one thing that I think a lot of people, we surround ourselves, especially in the outdoor community, because there's people that are avid elk hunters, but they put down somebody that's holding a trout the wrong way, or they're against predator or trapping, or even just bird hunters. That one seems to really bash one another about the piles, or how you're holding your birds in your photos. And we just need to get to a point in the outdoor community that we're just supporting each other. And if you don't have that support from the people, they're not worth your being in your circle, because they're hindering your happiness. And that applies. If you want to follow your dreams, you need people that are supportive of those dreams. So if one of our listeners is hearing this and they're like, man, I just really want to do this, bond with those people who are like, yes, go do this, because those are the people that you need. That is a support system you need. Now, it's okay to be a realist and somebody to be like, well, make sure you think it through first. It's not necessarily them putting you down, but making sure that you're weighing out all your options before you make a big jump or a career change or something like that. It's smart. But if people are like, oh, there's no way you could do this, or, oh, you're a girl, you can't do that, kick those people out of your life, because they don't need to be there. And like, following the path that you want and what you're willing to write in your own book is what everybody needs to be doing in their life. And it's just it's steps to a successful happiness, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Absolutely. And like I said, and I've said it, a couple times already, but honestly, huge shout out to both of my parents, and especially my mom, because I am the oldest sibling in my family. There's me and my younger brother. And, of course, she wants to have her shopping days, and she wants to, let's go get our nails done, and let's go do this, and let's go do that. And I love doing that with her. I absolutely do. I cannot tell you how many times I'm like, Mom, I can't go to TJ Maxx today. I'm going to goose hunt in the morning. You know what I mean? And no matter how many times I've bailed on, doing the girly things, I guess you could say, she's always supported me. She's always like, go out there, have fun, whatever. She's like, I don't really want to see the pictures, but I know you're out there living your best life, whatever. And then my dad too, to accept me for me, I think that him and I have a special bond in a sense that, kind of in a way, I feel like he looks at me like a son, but he treats me like a daughter, because just to go out there and do everything that he's doing and do it right alongside with him is really, really, really cool. And so I have a really cool relationship and a really awesome relationship with both of my parents. They're both very supportive of everything and anything that I do. And, I've never, like you said, just cut out the negativity in your life. And as of right now, like in my life, the circle that I have and the circle that I keep, everyone is very encouraging. And I, for one, appreciate that immensely, because I know that and it sucks to constantly be cut down, to always be looked at negatively, like, oh my gosh, you're so weird for doing this, or that's not very ladylike is my favorite one. But do what you like, do what you love, love what you do. And it, who cares what anybody else has to say? You don't need that negativity. Just make yourself happy. As long as you're not hurting yourself or hurting anyone around you, who cares?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, because I get it's not very ladylike for you to do that. And I always laugh and I say, your opinion can be contributed when you start paying my bills.
Yeah, period.
Like, end of story. I am the sole provider in my household. So until then, no one else's opinion matters. And I just think it's important for people to have that mentality and understand, like, it's okay to beat your own drum. Like, it is okay to stride away from what everyone else is doing and become the apex predator to your life, right? You don't have to fall in line and be a sheep with everybody else. Be you. Be unforgivably you at all times. Like, it's okay to be weird. It's okay to be funny. It's okay to follow your dreams, no matter how off the wall it sounds. And look at you. You are the prime example of it's not cookie cutter, right? Like, a woman in her early 20s to be a professional fish taxidermist. You don't see that. And I think that's so inspiring for these women, especially these young girls who are trying to find where they belong and love the outdoors in such a manner that if it's photography or if it's taxidermy or if it's just whatever that it is that you want to do, go do it, because it's probably the right place for you.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I absolutely love the trend that's going around right now, like be the main character, because I feel like that's such a good mindset for people to follow and like you were saying, like, go out there, be yourself, do your own thing, don't worry about what other people are saying behind your back, you're not looking at them anyways. And for me, like I want to look at myself in the mirror and be proud of the person that I am today. Every day I wake up and think what I can do to be better than yesterday, and I'm totally happy where I am in life, and I'm constantly striving to do more and to be better. And yeah, I just, obviously credit to my family, my friends, my customers, my support system, my everything, like I would not be where I am today without them. And I'm blessed to have that determination and that independence to not fall, to be the cookie cutter, like that everyone expects you to be. So yeah.
I love it. It's funny you say that. That's one of the things I say to my kids if they ever have a hard day. I'm like, listen, I don't expect you to be perfect, but I expect you to try to be better than who you were yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
End of the day, that is what our society needs to hear is it's okay not to be perfect. Every day is not going to be perfect. It's okay to have hard days. But if we're striving every day to be better than who we were yesterday, and I say we because you can't focus on what someone else is doing either, right? Like, you have to be competing with yourself and only yourself. And I think that's another thing that relates in the outdoor world and the taxidermy world is you can only compete with yourself. At the end of the day, you can do competitions with other people, but as long as you're competing with yourself of who you were yesterday. And like you, okay, so what was the very first fish that you ever mounted?
Oh, it was it was a perch. I kind of did multiples all at once. I did a perch, I did a crappie, I did a walleye, and I did a white bass. Those were the very first 4 fish that I ever did. I don't know that I'll ever really share pictures of those, maybe. And like I had said earlier, I remember looking at those fish and just thinking, wow, it doesn't get much better than this, and I will not get rid of them. I will always have them. They're sitting in my dad's, wood shop down in the basement, kind of as decoration to, pay homage to who I was 7 years ago, whatever. But it's, it's good for a laugh. It's good to look back and reflect on everything that I've learned and what I've accomplished and where I am today. But yeah, there's some good ones for sure.
Well, the reason why I asked that is so if your first one was, say, a perch, how many perch have you done since then? Like a ton, right?
Oh man. Well, I do about 200 fish a year, roughly. Some years I do more. I mean, there was a banner year that I did probably closer to 400 fish, and that was quite a few years ago. So, but if I had to think about it and break down the numbers, doing 200 fish a year at, 7 years, of that number, breaking it down by species, I've probably done a couple hundred perch, to be honest.
Okay, so you go from that very first perch that you've ever done to the very last perch you've done. And like the comparison there of growth, that is what drives you, right? Like, not even of who you were yesterday, but who you were 7 years ago compared to what you're doing now. That quality that you're putting out, what you've learned. And like, I'm sure it's not like an awful fish, right? It probably still looks decent, right?
No, but yeah, go ahead.
No, but yeah. Okay. You can tell that it's a fish though, right? And you
Yeah.
can tell that that's where your heart was. But now you've gotten to the point where the fish that you're doing now look like they should be breathing and blowing some bubbles. And it's cool to me for that, even if it's not something you share with the public, the fact that you hang on to something like that and look back at it shows the growth that within yourself, that you're competing within yourself. You're not comparing your fish pictures to someone else's fish pictures. This is what I do, and this is where I'm growing. And this is what I learned from the last one that I'm going to put into the next one. So I don't know. For me, it's just one of those things that I think that it's important to always remember where your roots came from and learn that you're growing from yourself. With all that being said, what is your favorite fish to mount?
Oh, my favorite? I really love perch. I really do. I really do like perch. I like perch. I like bluegills. I really like doing bass. I would say those are probably my top 3 favorite. And I get that question all the time. I always get people ask me, what's your favorite fish to do and what's your least favorite fish to do? There's obviously fish out there that are definitely more technical than others. Every fish that I do is different. I could have 20 perch laying in front of me, and yeah, they're all probably going to have the same color, similar colors, and some similar characteristics, but every fish is going to be different. And that's one thing that I've learned throughout the years is, I'll never look at a fish the same way again, whether I catch it or someone brings it to me or whatever. I just, I pull up a fish, I'm reeling one in, whatever, and I look at it and I'm just staring at this fish and I'm like, I need to take pictures of this because this thing is gorgeous. Like, I will never just look at a fish as a fish ever again. I always look at, oh, look at the blues over here and the yellows and the iridescence and this and that, whatever. But yeah, so that's a really cool thing, and something that it's almost opened up my artistic eye to seeing something more than what it is at face value. Like, there's so much more in these animals and in the specimens that you work on that you wouldn't notice if you don't look at it 100 times a day, every day for years.
Right. Well, and I had assumed that some sort of sunfish was going to be your favorite since that's in your logo. So I don't know if that played part in choosing your logo as your favorite species to mount.
So in the logo, a couple different things went into it. One, I think a bluegill, honestly, looking at all the fish, a bluegill is a very easily recognizable fish. Everywhere in the country that you go, if you show someone a picture of a bluegill, they're going to see it. And the reason I chose a bluegill too is a lot of people's first fish that they ever caught was a little 5-inch bluegill off grandpa's dock, when they were 5 years old. And so to me, it's a very warm feeling that you get when you think of bluegill and bluegill fishing. It's a classic type of fish.
Mm-hmm.
So, going into designing the logo too, I wanted something simple, something very straightforward. I wasn't going for flashy. I wasn't going for elaborate. I wasn't going to slap on a species that nobody knows anything about. I just wanted to go for that feeling of comfort. Like, it's a very comfort fish, I think, for a lot of people.
Yes. And I think it is a very iconic fish. It is something that everyone recognizes, no matter if you're in the deep into fishing or first time fishing, what a bluegill is, right? Or at least the panfish silhouette. So with your favorite fish and talking about that, what is your least favorite?
Oh, I don't know if I want to say it because now no one's gonna bring it to me. Oh, that's hard. Because I should reword that, because I really don't know if I have a least favorite fish. I have my favorite fish, of course, and I have fish that not that I don't care to work on, but they're really difficult to paint just because of the technicality of it. Like certain cold water fish that you get that have very iridescent scales, you'll see an Atlantic salmon, like one caught in the spring or summertime, and that thing is a rainbow. Every scale has 5 different colors on it. And so not that it's not enjoyable to do, it just takes a very technical level, like a very technical skill level to accomplish things like that. And even today, I tried out a new painting technique. Like every day I try new things, and I don't shy away from it, because even if you don't like how it looks, just start over, so it really just depends on the fish too. And I'm not going to go into it because I can talk for hours just about this subject, but different fish caught at different times of the year. Because, there's, certain fish, salmon, for example, they change, with their morphology, they change throughout the years. A salmon caught on the big lake during the summer is going to look way different than a late October salmon that you caught in the river. So just depends on the fish as well, what time of year, what their phase of life is at the time, what they're going through also determines, the level of skill that goes into painting it, I guess, if you want to say, or how much time you have to put into it. It really just depends on the species, honestly, because they're all different.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that. I can see that a lot of people don't understand that, right? Like the fish are going to change color based on their habitat, based on the time of the season. It's very intriguing to me, the diversity behind all of it. And it's just pretty neat to me that, fish are one of the ones that like you really have a lot of play in it, right? Like you get a deer and it's got a hide, and you can mess with the nose and sculpting around the eyes, and you can play with the colors a little bit, but for the most part, that animal is made up for you. So fish are the ones that you get the full artistic control of. In like a bird, you're getting the hide of that bird. You're going to try to represent that bird as best as possible, or that deer best as possible. But at the end of the day, what that actual animal is what you're mounting. So it's a little bit easier. Where like fish, it's just, you have to make all of that. And even if it's a skin mount, because you're still going to have to paint that. Even if you're doing these replicas or anything like that, you are starting really from scratch, and your artistic eye is what has to create that. So I think it's really neat. We're going to jump to another commercial break and hear from our sponsors, but we're going to come back and we're going to talk to Lexi about some tips and tricks of taxidermy and how to get your animals preserved properly for a taxidermist, and how to store and keep everything. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.
And now to the final segment to this week's episode of Women of the Wild podcast. We will conclude this segment by thanking our closing sponsors. Stay tuned for more of this week's episode after this short word from our sponsors. Muzzy Pheasant Farms, a mid-Michigan family-owned and operated pheasant game preserve that is open year-round. Muzzy offers educational courses and hunts. They are family-oriented, creating a great opportunity for new and seasoned upland hunters. With no membership required, come hunt with Muzzy Pheasant Farms. You can find more information at muzzypheasantfarms.com or check them out on Facebook and Instagram. Blast and Cast Guide Service is a veteran-owned and operated Michigan-based guide service for the Great Lakes. With decades of experience of fishing and waterfowl, they ensure a safe and enjoyable trip every time. You can check them out at blastandcastguideservice.com or on Facebook and Instagram. Ultimate Veteran Adventures. UVA offers outdoor therapy, recreation, and camaraderie through hunting and fishing adventures around the country for veterans, active duty military, Gold Star families, and first responders. You can find them at ultimateveteranadventures.com or on Facebook and Instagram. Sawmill Creek Bait and Lures, a husband and wife owned and operated company, the home of the C4, one of the best trapping canine lures on the market. You can find them at sawmillcreekbaitandlures.com or on Facebook and Instagram. Wicked 7 Outdoors, a Southwest Texas outfitter guide service with an exceptional care and quality of backcountry mountain hunts for free-range aoudad. Also offering high fence and low fence exotics, come immerse yourself in the outdoor experience. You can find Wicked 7 Outdoors on Facebook and Instagram. Misguided Outdoors is a female-driven Michigan-based guide service offering turkey and waterfowl hunts. Misguided is focused on educating women and youth, providing a hands-on hunt experience for all ages. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram. We thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the rest of this episode.
Welcome back. So we are here for the final segment with Lexi with the Fish Studio, and you have been an absolute pleasure to speak with. And I think that one of the things that I would love to dive in with you is these people that catch a fish that want to get it mounted or want to bring it to you. what are some of the tips that you're going to tell someone of, unless they're doing a skin mount, but if somebody wants a replica, what are the measurements? What are the photos that you need as a taxidermist to be able to replicate that fish to the best of your capabilities? Like what is ideal that you want clients to bring to you?
So I'm really glad that you asked this question, and I'm going to go in and explain a little bit both skin mounts and replicas, the differences, the pros and the cons, and how to go about the process for both ways. So we'll start with the replicas. For replicas, for example, if you're out there and you're muskie fishing and you don't want to, take a 50-inch muskie's life for no reason other than to get it mounted. If you're into the catch and release, or even if you catch a fish and you'd rather fillet it than put it on your wall, or whatever the case may be. So for a replica, you really have 3 measurements. You have length, which is measured from the tip of the nose, pinch the tail, measure it. That's the total length. Measure the girth, which is usually, it's the fattest point of the fish. And that varies from fish to fish, but generally the fattest point of the fish. And then the weight too. It's really important to get a good weight within the first few hours of catching that fish, because the body on it is going to change a lot. What I see a lot of, and it's just, it's scientific, if you catch, we'll use a perch, for example. If you catch a 14-inch perch and it has a 10-inch girth, it's going to weigh this much. But if you bring it into me days later after it being in the freezer or not being in the freezer, and I put a tape measure on that fish is going to be a little bit longer, and it's going to weigh probably half of what it did, because they lose a lot of water weight. And what happens is their spine relaxes and all their muscles relax, so they will grow in length. So as long as, right after you catch the fish, whether you're going to keep it or release it, try and get those measurements right away. It's actually not uncommon at all for people to reach out to me and say, hey, I was really concerned about getting this fish back in the water. I didn't want to keep it in the boat for too long, or I didn't want to keep it out of the water for too long. I didn't get any measurements on it. And that is totally okay too. Or for people to say, hey, I only got the length on it. I've seen enough fish in my life that I'm pretty good at gauging anymore nowadays, but even the off chance that you didn't get a single measurement on it, a lot of times I'll tell people, depending on how they're holding it in the photo, hey, measure the width of your palm. Hey, measure your shoulder to shoulder. We'll try and gauge it that way. How heavy did it feel? What did it feel like? Was it as heavy as, a brick? Was it as heavy as, things like that? We can kind of gauge and go from there. But so whether you get all 3 measurements or 1 measurement or no measurements, it's really easy to find the right replica anymore nowadays. I feel like there's a big stigma around replicas. If you would have asked this question 10 years ago, most people would get skin mounts because replicas weren't either readily available or they didn't look as nice. But the way that taxidermy has advanced so much today that, it's really no issue. And I tell people this every day, all day when I talk to them. It's no issue finding the right shape, size, variation of your species whatsoever, whether they're my own personal molds or I have to outsource and look for another mold, that somebody has, whatever. It's not an issue. As far as skin mounts go, obviously if you bring me the fish, I'm going to use it. Really, so the difference between them, well, here, I'll start by saying this. If you're going to bring me a fish to get mounted and have a skin mount done, if you catch it and you're going to bring it to me within a few days, just keep it cold on ice, wrap it in a damp towel to keep the moisture in, to keep them damp, just so that they don't start to dry out in any way. If you're not going to make it to me for another couple weeks, again, wrap it in a damp towel, wrap it up in a plastic bag or something like that, and just stick it in your freezer. It'll be absolutely fine. So the difference between skin mounts and replicas is really anymore, and it totally depends on the species. Most warm water fish, your perch, your bass, your walleye, bluegills, things like that, they're totally fine to do skin mounts on. They're not greasy usually. They're not super oily. They have good scale structure. They have good bone structure. They're totally fine to do skin mounts on. Cold water fish, on the other hand, you have to look out for a little bit more. You know, your trout and your salmon, they tend to be a little bit oilier. They tend to be a little bit greasier. They don't have the best bone structure in their heads. So usually if I do a skin mount on a cold water fish, I end up replacing the head with a replica head anyways. Because definitely over time, I definitely do enough repair jobs and repaints on 30-year-old salmon to know that it will keep shrinking and it will keep leaking grease. So I usually recommend and tell people that ask me that if you're going out salmon fishing or trout fishing, your best bet is a replica. Now, in my personal professional opinion, I think replicas are better in general because you don't really, I like to tell people no matter how good a skin is preserved, degreased, mounted, whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, it's still skin. You might not see the effects of it in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but eventually over that time, that skin will want to start leaking oils of some sort or whatever. So the best way to avoid that, and the thing that I find as far as longevity and durability goes, that replicas, you really can't beat it, honestly. Now, I do still offer skin mounts because I do have a percentage of my clientele base that prefers traditional taxidermy. They've always had skin mounts done. That's what they know. That's what they love. So that's why I still offer it. I'm totally 100% capable and, I don't mind doing them at all. But, replicas today nowadays have advanced enough that, I could put two fish side by side and tell you, pick out which one's the real fish and pick out which one's the not. And I can almost guarantee you 9 times out of 10, you won't be able to tell.
Yeah. And like my personal preference, especially with all the taxidermy work that I've done locally with people is, or I shouldn't say that I've done, but that I've learned from is the replicas. It's a great way to put that fish back in the waterway, right? Like you catch a smallie, why not put him back for someone else to catch? So the catch and release, I love that aspect of the replicas that we've gotten to the technology that they can be that good.
Mhm.
You have a sturgeon, right? Like you have a muskie, you have a pike, a bass, whatever it may be. If you're not keeping it to consume it, which if you're going to consume it, you're not going to be able to keep it for the skin mount because then you're going to be filleting the fish. So to me, I just always have felt that replicas are the better way to go, especially with how advanced we are in technology. But it's also giving those anglers the option to put that smallmouth bass back instead of doing the skin mount. But if somebody is a skin mount collector, completely understand with keeping to that. Now, like with smallmouth bass, I have noticed it a lot is the coloration of change based on like, so you catch that fish, you want to get those photos like right away because once you put them in the live well, that color is going to start changing over time. Do you
100%.
ever have, yeah, so is that fair to say? Like, are you better off that like the quicker you can get those photos, the quicker you can get those measurements? And if you're not going to keep the fish, like put it back as soon as possible. If you're in a competition, obviously you don't have that ability because you got to go get it weighed and everything. But if you plan on, you catch a 7-pound smallmouth bass, right? And you want to get it mounted, they're going to measure the length, the girth, and they're going to get the measurement, the weight on it, and then take photos as quickly as possible. Are there certain photos you want, or is just a single photo typically enough? Or if somebody wants a spectacular job, are there photos in depth that they can take a little bit better to make your job easier?
I'm going to do the best job that I can possible, whether you take one photo and it's the worst photo you've ever taken in your life, or whether it's 100 pictures of every single scale on the body. I would say that 100% you should absolutely take that picture before you release it, like right after you first catch it, because that's when the colors are going to be the most vibrant. That's when the colors are going to be the most true. Usually I tell people this all the time, whether you take 110 or 100 pictures, take them all, send them all to me. I will use all of them in reference. But I do understand there are times where you can only take, 1 or 2 quick snaps and then you got to get the fish back in the water or, get on with whatever it is that you were doing. But I would say the best photos to take definitely are one of the whole fish laying down, or if you can't lay the fish down on a bump board or on your boat or whatever, and you have to hold the fish, try not to crowd around the tail and try not to cover up the face. Because a lot of times fishermen, I even do it myself. And that's kind of what you do when you catch fish. You're holding the fish out with both hands. You're going to take a picture. And I noticed, especially guys, because they tend to have bigger hands than, women do. Their hand that's holding the head will cover the face. And the hand that's that's grabbing onto the tail will cover the tail. So pictures like that are a little difficult sometimes, because then it's like I have to almost guess as to what I think the tail color would be based on the color of the fish. And I have to guess the pattern or the color of the face, again, depending on the color and the pattern of the body. So I would say if you're gonna hold a fish like that, hold your fingers down. Just even for a quick second, take a couple snaps, and then you can go back to holding it normally, whether to release it or, take more pictures or whatever. But definitely try not to cover anything up when it comes to taking pictures. And I know that it's absolutely not at the forefront of anybody's mind when they caught a fish. You catch a fish that is going on the wall. That's the last thing you think about. All you're thinking about is how you can get this thing measured, how you can get as many pictures as you can. You don't actually think about the quality of the picture or what you're taking. You know what I mean? And I do want to mention something real quick that I think is really important is I will never, ever judge somebody or make anybody feel bad, any angler feel bad for catching a fish and bringing it to me, knowing they want a replica. And I just want to preface that. And, because I'll talk about it and say why would you kill a 50-inch muskie if you're not even going to get a skin mount done? But you know what? If you do choose to do that and bring that to me, most of the fish that people bring me that they have caught that they're getting a replica done, whether I cast it or not, I do save those fish and use them for later projects just because I don't want them to go to waste. But I will never make somebody feel bad or hold it against them if they choose to keep a fish, that they're going to get a replica done. And I just think it's important that people know that, it is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. How they want to do it is what your job is to make sure that that client is happy. I know that there are taxidermists out there that they stray away from doing skin mounts for that reason. But I think that's a very good point is it's really dependent on what you want and how you want it done. So I'm really excited to see more of your work. We actually, when this airs, we have a women's steelhead fishing trip coming up. And for the ladies that are interested in getting those steelhead done, I would love for them to get in contact with you, because we actually have two we have one at the beginning of March and one at the end of March. And steelhead are one of my favorite fish to catch. They're just so much fun.
They're favorite fish. So
they're what?
They're one of my favorite fish to paint. I love them. I love steelhead. I love steelhead and browns. Of the cold water fish, those got to be my two favorite.
They're just stunning, spectacular fish. And I know for sure, if I end up getting on that trip, my fish is coming to you, because I would love to just have a piece of your work in my house. But for the ladies that are listening that are interested, we do have those steelhead fishing trips coming up in Michigan. And Lexi, you're in Michigan. So what better way to contribute is by supporting another female who's doing something like this. And we do fishing trips year round. So I think that it's really great for our listeners to have the contact of the fish studio and with you, because you're an incredible person. You're so inspirational, and you have your head on right, which I think is awesome, because you don't get to see that a lot. A lot of people, they get real concerned with social media, or daily life just takes over, and we all have our struggles and our battles. But I think supporting other women who have a passion, who have a drive, is so important, because that's what's going to help the longevity of your business. And to keep going and growing your passion further is the support. And I love when women support other women. So I'm really thankful that you've came on for this episode for this week. And I can't wait to see more of your work. And I hope that we're able to bring some fish to you throughout the year.
And I appreciate that. Yeah. And I just want to go ahead and say that I appreciate it so much, you having me on here, being able to talk about my life and what I do, and, helping you and being there for you to, with what you're doing with Women of the Wild. I just want to say, like I said earlier, I think it's an amazing organization. And I think what you're doing for women out there who truly care and want to be part of the outdoor world, I just think it's amazing. And I think it's a perfect and outlet for women to feel safe and to be themselves to be a part of something and actually feel like they belong, I think is so incredible and so amazing. Cause like, you know, like I've touched on, is it's hard to feel like what you're doing, like it's hard to feel out of place, you know, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be here, you know, maybe I should be doing something else. But honestly, do what you love what you do. And I'm honored that you invited me on here because, you know, I think women being out here doing their thing, just, you know, trailblazing a path for other women is just so important, just to show them, you know, hey, it's okay to be different. It's okay to not, you know, live by, you know, society standards of how a woman, quote unquote, should act or should do, you know. And so I just really think that's amazing, and I really appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're not barefoot in the kitchen anymore.
Yeah, no. Not like backstraps from a deer I shot.
That's right. Well, Lexi, it was wonderful to speak with you. For our listeners, please get in contact with the fish studio if you have fish that you want to get mounted, or if you have questions, please reach out, because Lexi is going to be more than happy to answer those questions and make sure that you're being able to preserve and put that trophy or that dream up on that wall or commemorate a memory. To me, that's what taxidermy is really about, is commemorating that memory of what you're out there doing. So make sure you get in contact with her. Make sure you're following us on Women of the Wild. We have a ton of trips coming up. We have our steelhead trips. We have pheasant trips. We have South Africa again, and we are all over the place. We have some shark fishing coming up. We have some duck hunts and some goose hunts. And we have a lot of educational programs and online courses. So make sure you're checking out the website at womenofthewild.net. We have our calendars that went out this year that were spectacular. So we're going to be running the new calendar contest for the 2025 calendars. We also have the Wild Game Cookbook, which is women from all around the country sharing their wonderful recipes with other great women, and anything from fish to small game to poultry to bear, elk, moose, you name it. So make sure you check that out. We'll also be taking new submissions for the meal preps and the cookbook submissions for the 2025 year, and really excited to see where the rest of 2024 takes Lexi, where it takes Women of the Wild, and we look forward to having you on an event with us. So thank you, Lexi, for joining us, and until next time, we hope to see you on an event.
Yeah, thank you.